Solo Leveling by Gong. Chapter 70. The Advent of the Dragon King. I haven't heard from Canada yet. The hunter in charge of communications stammered. Frustrated, Jin Woo pulled out his cell phone. He knew someone who could give him the answer he was looking for in a timely manner. Jin Woo went through his contacts and called up Special Agent Adam White of the Asian branch of the Hunter Command Center. Considering everything that was going on right this second, Jin Woo was worried that his call wouldn't go through. "Hunter Sung!" A nervous voice picked up the call. There was no time to exchange greetings, so Jin Woo got straight to the point. "Adam, what's going on with the gate in Canada?" Just then, Jin Woo heard cheering through the phone. It was faint enough that he barely managed to pick it up even with his excellent hearing, but it was enough to confirm his suspicions. "Where are you now?" "I'm at the gate in Canada. I'm here with other American agents to support the raid." "Why the hell are you there?" Adam was taken aback by the disbelief in Jin Woo's voice. "We're not exactly in a position where we can sit back and watch what happens. A lot of American agents are here with me." He also added that he was far enough from ground zero that he could evacuate in time should things go south. Regardless, Jin Woo couldn't help but be exasperated. Didn't I warn them? People had no idea of the enormity of the situation. But there was still hope that his prediction was wrong, since Adam was safe and sound. He collected himself and continued calmly. "Have there been any changes with the gate?" "No, it looks like the gate is empty just like everywhere else. It's quiet here." Jin Woo was relieved. He would rather be criticized for spreading false information. He let out a sigh of relief. Phew. It seemed he'd had the wrong idea. "Huh? Hang on." Adam sounded rattled, which sent a chill up Jin Woo's spine. Why did bad feelings always come true? Adam quickly reported. Something is coming out of the gate right now." "Huh? What?" It's a single person." Jin Woo's heart began to race once again. Just one person. Jin Woo felt as if his hair was standing on end as he blurted out. "His hair?" Adam was a safe distance from the gate, so he wouldn't be able to check the man's pupils, but he could see his hair. "What color is his hair?" Hold on." Adam borrowed some kind of special equipment from an agent nearby. "Looks black and red. His hair is dark red." "Oh crap." Jin Woo's eyes widened. "Adam, get out of there. Get in a car or whatever. Just get out now." "What?" But before Adam could ask Jin Woo for clarification, Krakum, an explosion came from the other side of the phone. "Oh my God!" Adam started screaming. "Adam!" Jin Woo's voice snapped Adam out of his shock. He sobbed into the receiver. "The hunters! All the high-rank hunters on the front lines are turning to ash. Their bodies are still on fire. Oh my God! Adam! Adam, it's okay. Just get out of there now. You need to get out of there immediately." Jin Woo tried to calm Adam down, but the agent was already half out of his mind. "Oh no!" Through his sobbing, Adam managed to describe everything to Jin Woo as if it was his duty. "Dragons are descending. An endless horde of dragons and other magic beasts is coming. There are all kinds of magic beasts. How is this happening?" At the sorrow in Adam's voice, Jin Woo could no longer bring himself to simply listen. As risky as it was, he tapped into the shadow soldier attached to Adam. He was able to see what Adam was seeing. It was as if the apocalypse had come. The envoys of destruction blanketed out the sky as they descended from the yawning gate. Horrifying monsters occupied both land and air. The roar of four-legged beasts shook the earth, while flying creatures flapped their wings overhead. Even before the magic beasts hit the ground, the hunters who had gathered to oppose them had vanished with a snap of the fingers from the monarch of destruction who preceded them. Everyone else was in a panic and trying to escape, but their chances at survival were dreadfully slim. But Jinwoo could at least save Adam. The High Orc Shadow Soldier controlled by Jinwoo grabbed a fearful Adam by the wrist. "Aya!" Adam screamed at the sight of the High Orc in black armor, but he soon noticed the shadow of a familiar-looking man in his eyes. "Hunter Sung?" There was no time to explain. Jinwoo could debrief Adam after teleporting him. While possessing the High Orc's body, Jinwoo tried to drag Adam into the shadow beneath his feet. But someone suddenly came up from behind and grabbed the High Orc by the shoulder. Whap! The High Orc looked back and saw a middle-aged man with creepy reptilian eyes glaring at him. "Where do you think you're going, Shadow?" The man opened his mouth wide, charging up powerful energy. Jinwoo looked at Adam. Adam seemed to realize something and stared the High Orc controlled by Jinwoo dead in the eye. "Hunter Sung I." Bwayawa. The man unleashed the fire in his mouth, and the Shadow Soldier disintegrated into nothing. "Arg!" Jinwoo felt like his body was on fire and writhed at the intense pain. He was able to escape, since only his senses had been connected to the High Orc, but it was a different story for Adam. Jinwoo had witnessed the agent's final moment. Jinwoo ground his teeth as he thought about the look in Adam's eyes as he caught fire and turned to ash. Bam! Jinwoo slammed his fist into the ground and shook the entire area. Damn it! Jinwoo should have known. With their enemy being the Shadow Monarch, who would grow stronger as the war dragged on, the enemy would minimize the battlefield and focus their attacks on one target at a time. The monarchs had faked him out with their original plan to open all 8 gates at once, and they sent their entire force to the gate farthest from me. Jinwoo had made a painful mistake. His plan to increase his shadow army while the other gates were being attacked had gone up in smoke. Realizing something awful must have occurred, Jigen cautiously approached Jinwoo. "Hunter Sung!" It was then that the hunter in charge of communication walked up to them, the blood having drained from his face. "Hunter Sung, Hunter Liu. Canada has been..." Jinwoo didn't need to hear the rest. When he looked up, the gate covering the sky was slowly vanishing, having completed its purpose. A shadow soldier and the human next to him were burned away, as the fiery breath of destruction could melt even an immortal soldier with one blow. The Dragon King looked down over the ashes at his feet, satisfied with the results. He then turned to look at the soldiers of the world of chaos. Stuck in the gap between dimensions for far too long, they were now taking to the use of their powers and their newfound freedom like fish to water. The Dragon King closed his eyes, spread his arms out wide, and relished his own freedom. The heartbeats of living creatures. Their screams. The sound of those creatures being destroyed. It was music to his ears. Thud. The ancient dragons landed forcefully on the ground, followed by 2 monarchs. The monarchs were then followed by several marshals. In a show of respect, they knelt before the most powerful monarch. The Dragon King smiled and grabbed at some mana vibrating in the air. The mana that had been released into this world in order to enhance, it was also a boon to those who knew how to use it. Their preparations were complete. Jaya ha ha ha! The Dragon King let out a laugh powerful enough to make the ground shake. He cried out to the soldiers who continued to pour from the gate. "We have but one mission. Destroy everything." Hundreds of dragons rocketed past him overhead and rained flames down below. Whoosh! David Brannon sat alone in the director's office with the lights off. He ignored the countless reports and phone calls from his higher-ups, and drank the expensive booze he had been saving for his eldest daughter's wedding. The muted TV screen flickered in the dark. Now and then, magic beasts came up on screen. David knew why the network kept airing the same footage. They're probably all dead. Just like the Hunter Command Center's agents, who had been sent to Canada to support the raid, it was likely that no one had survived. Hunters, agents, and reporters covering the story were all dead, every last one of them. But thanks to the cameraman who had risked his life to get this footage, people had an idea of what they were dealing with. "It's all over!" the director screamed. Jean Wu hadn't been exaggerating. The dragons alone numbered in the hundreds. They were followed by a tsunami of giants, wild beasts, and bugs. These magic beasts were walking disasters no human had the power of stopping. David now understood why Jean Wu had repeatedly emphasized evacuation. It was the end of the world. That crazy bastard! Jean Wu had gone to China with his minions to confront those terrifying things. Hadn't he? Why would he even consider engaging those creatures, knowing what he knew about them? The director wanted to crack open Jin Wu's head and inspect his brain if he could. But my skull would be shattered into dozens of pieces before I could make that happen. Hey! As he laughed in spite of himself, he pulled out a picture from the inner pocket of his jacket. It was an image of him looking annoyed next to his daughter, wearing a party hat. Is she 16 in this photo? Had he known his daughter would become the victim of a dungeon break in the year after that, he would have spent more time with her and taken more pictures with her. Heck, he would have quit his job to do so. David was dejected that this was the only picture he had of the two of them together. He emptied another glass. When his daughter was buried, he thought he'd never open this bottle. He smacked his lips bitterly and shook the bottle. It was already half empty. Yes, it's over now. Half of Canada had apparently been devastated already, and that was merely an estimate. No one knew how quickly those magic beasts were advancing on the United States. The director angrily pulled off his tie. I won't die at the hands of those bastards. He'd sworn on his daughter's grave that he'd never let those magic beasts kill him. At the very least, David wanted to choose how he died. His decision made, he stood at a window from which he could see the groundway down below. A cool breeze blew on his sweaty forehead. I hope I'll see my daughter again. He squeezed his eyes shut and leaned forward. Someone grabbed his shoulder. Ah! David's eyes flew open to see a familiar face behind him. H. Hunter Sung? The director paled like he had seen a ghost. Jean Wu spoke. I'm looking for something. What was Jean Wu looking for as the world was about to end? More importantly, was this person in front of David really Jean Wu? The director shook his head to clear it, thinking that he must be hallucinating. But as Jean Wu came more and more into focus, he quickly realized that it was Hunter Sung in the flesh. David sobered up instantly. WH, what are you looking for? A rune stone, Jean Wu clarified. Please give me the rune stone Kamish left behind. The director's surprise didn't last long. He shook his head out of reflex. As you know, the Hunter Command Center has been. David's mouth snapped shut. Damn his habits. What about the Hunter Command Center? Never mind that. The entire country was going to be decimated. So who cared about the rune stone? I think I'm still drunk. The director slapped both his cheeks hard. He started to think straight as his cheeks heated up. Once his eyes cleared, he determined that Jin Wu's reason for wanting the rune stone was more important than whatever it was worth to the Hunter Command Center and the United States. After a bit of thought, the director cautiously probed Jean Wu. I can give you the rune stone, but may I ask why you need it? Jinwoo answered without hesitation. I'm going to use it for a counterattack. Jinwoo had seen the skill locked within the rune stone through the system. It contained the power of a dragon, but he previously hadn't been interested in the rune stone because of the skill's obvious disadvantage. Jinwoo hadn't needed it. But times change. Jinwoo and the director descended to the 9th underground level within the Hunter Command Center headquarters. They soon arrived in front of the tempered glass display case housing the rune stone. Without the system, Jinwoo now looked over the skill contained in the stone using his own eyes and perception. It was as he had remembered, a terrifying power. However, this incredible power was worth any drawbacks, especially in this situation. Bottom. Jinwoo's heart pounded in his chest. After staring at the rune stone for a moment, David posed a question. You said these so-called rulers sent magic beasts here, right? Yes. Why are these rune stones in the bodies of magic beasts? They're gifts of sorts from the rulers to help us hunt magic beasts more efficiently. The rulers had wanted to release mana into this world through violent clashes between humans and magic beasts. The sacrifice of humans was an unfortunate side effect, not their ultimate goal. Having rune stones seal a magic beast's power when it died was their attempt at sympathy for the human's plight. That was how Kamish's power had come to be stored in this rune stone. Jinwoo took hold of the key for his counterattack. The director swallowed as he nervously watched Jinwoo with the rune stone in his hand. Can you really stop those magic beasts with that? I'll have to try at least. Even at this very moment, the armies led by the Dragon King continued their advance and destruction of everything in sight. Thanks to the rulers reinforcing the world with mana, the armies could only move so fast. However, that was just buying time. Before long, the whole planet would be on fire. Jinwoo couldn't very well just watch the world come to an end, now could he? The enemy very much feared the power of the Shadow Monarch. They wanted to disrupt that power, even if it meant plotting against the Shadow Monarch behind his back. Jinwoo was going to show them how a weak creature could wield that power. I'm going to do everything I can. The determination in Jinwoo's eyes hit the director right in the heart. Jinwoo had never backed down from a fight, regardless of how powerful his opponent was. Meanwhile, David had spent much of his time trying to avoid the threat. Standing in Jinwoo's presence, the director felt utterly inadequate. Was I really thinking of joining my daughter? How pathetic of me. David was ashamed of himself. Now he wanted to bear witness to Jinwoo's battle, regardless of the outcome. I have no right to ask this of you, but please stop those monsters. The director sobbed. Perhaps all David had really wanted was to avoid dying at the hands of those magic beasts. As the head of the Hunter Command Center, he should have led the charge against them, but he didn't have the courage to watch countless Americans die. But even if they were merely hanging on by a thread, Brandon wanted to grab onto it no matter what. He continued to tear up as he summoned this newfound courage. Jinwoo gently put his hand on the director's shoulder. To David, this gesture felt more dependable than 1,000 words of reassurance. He wiped away his tears. How embarrassing. I'm sorry, Hunter-sung. Jinwoo waited until Brandon was calmer before he spoke. One more thing. There's somebody I need to find. Jinwoo followed the director into an apartment building not far from the headquarters of the Hunter Command Center. She lives nearby? The Hunter Command Center believes it's best to keep close to the people they need to protect. It looked like she lived on a lower floor, since David chose to take the stairs. David was just starting to sweat when he stopped at a door on the 4th floor. We're here. Jinwoo nodded. Knock, knock. Brandon gently knocked on the door twice instead of ringing the bell. like it had been previously agreed upon. After a brief silence, an agent inside confirmed that it was David and then opened the door. "Director Brannon?" The agent's nose crinkled at the smell of alcohol. Then he jumped back in surprise as soon as he spotted Jean Wu. At least he didn't pull a gun on Jean Wu as he had during their first meeting. The agent did instinctively put his hand on his waist after seeing that there was an unexpected visitor. But he soon looked flustered as he remembered what had happened the last time he tried that on Jean Wu. "Hunter Sung." There was no time to ascertain why the world's most powerful hunter was standing there. The director and his guest entered the apartment. The other agent assigned, as a guard came out to see David. "Where is she?" "She's inside." "Whoa!" This agent was also startled to see Jean Wu. "Director Brannon, that's. I brought him here because he wished to see her. Please tell her Hunter Sung is here." "Yes, sir. I wasn't expecting to receive visitors at this time." The door to a bedroom opened just then, and Norma Sellner walked into the room. She was the upgrader and former psychic who could increase a hunter's power beyond their limits. Jean Wu moved one step forward and politely bowed to Mrs. Sellner. "Please come in." She led Jean Wu inside the bedroom. When the director attempted to follow them, Mrs. Sellner gently stopped him. "Hunter Sung probably wants to have a private conversation with me." When she turned to Jean Wu, he nodded in agreement. The door closed on the director, who cleared his throat and straightened out his clothes. With the door completely shut, Mrs. Sellner slowly turned toward the man waiting for her in one corner of the room. She gasped after getting a good look at him from head to toe. "My goodness!" Jean Wu looked totally different from the last time she had seen him. You are not the person I knew." Mrs. Sellner was incredulous. She had previously seen the darkness deep inside Jean Wu, but now he was the darkness itself. The power of the dead encompassing Jean Wu was quite evident to her. Jean Wu shook his head. "I'm the same person. The only difference is now, the darkness and I have become one." There were no words to describe this wondrous sight. The power of a god was nestled inside a human. Mrs. Sellner marveled at the power oozing from Jin Wu's every pore. But she soon snapped back to her senses and picked her jaw up from off the floor. "I cannot be of help to you, Hunter Sung." Nobody in the world could help this superhuman. But Jean Wu had a different wish. He carefully approached the fearful Mrs. Sellner. "You said you could see into the future." "In a way. Then could you please look into mine?" Jean Wu wanted to see the end of this war through Mrs. Sellner's eyes before entering the fray in earnest. Whatever the answer, it would put his mind at ease. Mrs. Sellner hesitated at first, but eventually nodded slowly. She reached out to take Jin Wu's hands and then closed her eyes. She needed to muster up the courage to stare into the darkness. But she also knew Jean Wu himself would need an inordinate amount of more courage to go into battle. She could not deny the brave warrior this request. Time flew by quickly. When Mrs. Sellner opened her eyes, she couldn't help but weep. Are you really going to carry this burden all by yourself?" Jean Wu didn't answer. How could one person bear such a burden? Are you planning to save everyone and everything with your sacrifice?" Jin Wu's face brightened. "It's good to hear I'll get that far." "Good? No one will remember you. You will fight a lonely war." Jean Wu let go of her hands even as she tried to dissuade him. He had prepared for this ever since he decided to fight the monarchs. He took a step back from her and wished her farewell. "My apologies for the sudden visit and for asking such a huge favor. Hunter Sung." Jean Wu disappeared into the shadow beneath his feet even before she finished her frantic cry. The agents rushed into the room at her scream, but Jean Wu was already gone. Jinwoo stood on the roof of the tallest building downtown and sharpened his senses to search for an energy signature, the same way he'd located Jinho when he was kidnapped. He sensed a countless number of soldiers making their way south from the northern tip of the country. He couldn't sense a single living creature left in their wake. Everyone had been devoured by the denizens of chaos. Byung Min, Gun Hee-go, Adam White, and Jinwoo's father. The faces of all the victims who had been sacrificed in this fight flashed through Jinwoo's mind. Fury clawed at and engulfed his heart. Jinwoo closed his eyes to search for the Dragon King within the huge army. It wasn't difficult to locate the eye of a storm that was consuming everything in its path. Found you. Jinwoo and the Dragon King spotted each other at the same time. He sensed the energy scanning him and knew that only one person possessed that kind of power. The Emperor stopped dead in his tracks and glared in Jinwoo's direction. Having located his true enemy, his reptilian eyes stared into the darkness for quite some time. The Shadow Monarch and the Monarch of Destruction met each other's eyes even from that distance. The Monarch of Destruction was the first to bare his fangs. "I am right here!" A dreadful roar like hundreds of thousands of lightning bolts striking at once shook the sky. "Tens of millions of your kind are already dead. How long are you going to hide like that?" Jinwoo's eyes flashed with rage. "I'm coming for you. And when I get my hands on you..." Jinwoo swallowed the rest of his words and silently sank into the shadows.